see yourselves building up kind of a generic scenarios that could apply to any project? I mean, obviously you're going to have to build very specific simulations and scenarios based on the actual facility and the project or the platform or whatever it is. How do you see yourself going forward in the future with this?
Some HSE scenario could be generic, as you said, but most of the others are specific operation procedure, or even the black start procedure I described in my last slide is specific to the site, so it's specific to the 3D model developed for the site.
Okay. All right. Okay. Who do we have? Okay, Ralph.
This is Gopal Hegde from Duke Energy, Project Management and Construction. I'm very much happy to hear a lot of this simulation, but there is something I didn't see addressed here yet. During the construction, we have all across the country, of course, and overseas, there's a lot of accidents on the crane, by the crane dynamic movements with the loads. Is there any way this same software modeling can be used to find out the accident scenario and how to prevent that?
Can I comment on that? Actually, I won't speak on I have Aviva. I will actually speak on another customer that I've worked with called Zachary, and Ray, you may want to comment on this, is that they've actually put a full study into doing crane, and they actually had crane simulation that they do prior to any crane operator operating a crane. So you bring that one up specifically. They've actually done that. So the answer is yes, you could build simulation to do that. And then with the physics models that are offered by my colleague here as well as myself, those things can be built in to show sway and change and weight, load distribution, those type of things. But what I do want to point out is I think companies are already doing this. In the case of Zachary, not to try to put a plug in for them, but they have demonstrated at Fiatech this simulator several times for people to actually come in and sit down and try it. And I'll be honest with you, it's hard to operate a crane.
This is for Nicholas, and it's about the 3D visualization. It looked like on the screen that it was a 3D environment displayed on a 2D screen. I was wondering if you also use 3D glasses at all.
So yes, it will be a next step. I test already 3D glasses. That's true that you are more immersive in the site. That's I think a good thing, but we have to use it for 1 or 2 hours because to see the effect on the person, on the trainee itself. I say that because I visit also what they call an immersive cave. In fact, the 3D model is projected into the floor and into the wall. And you are inside with specific 3D glasses. So it's very good for manager, for communication. That's a very big impact. But for the trainee, I tested 5 minutes, and I was close to be seasick. So when you see that they are do the training all the days and several days. Okay, for communication purpose, it's very nice, but to the training itself, question mark. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll just quickly say, I think if you want to keep that close link to computer games and stuff like that, I think to keep it in that sort of flat television type screen is probably keeps everyone thinking subconsciously they're playing a game, but also learning at the same time.
I want to add, we did a project last year with Siemens. It was not in 3D, but it used motion technology. So the avatar that you saw on the screen that's moving there, actually you became that avatar. So the actual going through there, you'd have to stand there, move your hands and walk, or turn a valve. You'd actually go through all those motions yourself, and it would motion recognize what you do. And I think that's a very powerful way to do it.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to add, there's a number of use cases that span a pretty broad range of the asset life cycle. You mentioned construction. Certainly safety in construction is important. But I'd like to mention that during construction and design, given the actual positioning in space of the facility when it's finally deployed, under variable wind direction, we can also simulate accidents and smoke dispersion that will actually follow the prevailing wind direction, so that during construction, safety reviews can actually lead to a better design of the egress routes and the huddle points based on the actual positioning in space of the asset once it's delivered. So we're talking about pre-commissioning training here of the operator, but during construction, there's also something that the EPC can do, and the operator, of course, depending on its requirements, to ensure the safety of the operators by improving the design.
I have a follow-up question for Nicholas. There was a slide where you had a subtitle of immersive effects and a bunch of things listed down there. And I was wondering if, in a particular event, did that mean you actually put the trainee in a real shower, and did it involve real glass? What was the meaning of immersive effects?
But the meaning of the immersive effect is to show the main safety items on the platform. They are not dynamic yet, but of course, if they are one day dynamic, it's better to do scenario. So I don't know if it will be possible soon, but we want to develop as much as possible dynamic element into the 3D model.
So this virtual environment is really a great tool for training. That's no doubt about that. However, once plant up and running, do you see any use of using the virtual environment for day-to-day operational activity, and any company or anybody is using that for day-to-day operational troubleshooting?
Can I ask the question? You're asking if it's been used in day-to-day operations, is what you're asking? With a plant that's running or something like that?
Yeah, and then probably if you have an incident investigation, locating investigation, and anything during operation. So using the simulation, so you typically on the DCS you get the alarm that this and this thing is happening, but actual visualization in the operational facility.
Right. I think what you said earlier, I think Nicholas said it, is combining the OTS, the ITS side of the worlds, and having some prior experience on the OTS side. I think I understand where you're going with that, and the answer is yes. You should be coupling those together to show those effects, because the operator is not just inside. He's got to be outside changing that wheel or different things like that. So, standard procedures for shutting down equipment to remove it and change it, lockout tagouts, bringing a unit back up and down type things, those are all type of real simulation type of areas that I would say would be operating conditions.
And one thing which is really great here is that as a part of simulation, you identify that you can go to the vessel and you can pick up information related to that vessel. So some of those things is probably critical in the operational environment, that if you have one heat exchanger, you are not operating every day, but if you find some problem, you just utilize that 3D visualization tool, click on that and get information.
So I would say that at the moment, certainly in Shell, it's kind of like the last area to try and sell 3D into operations, because a lot of the pushback is normally, why do I need a virtual model when I can just walk outside? And that's fair enough. That's a fair comment for an operator. But when you start saying, well, okay, well, what about if the outside is hazardous and H2S, or it's Arctic, or frozen, it's dangerous for you to go out there, then you start needing those kind of environments. Yeah. But and I think what we're seeing is we're starting to get a bit of pull as the younger teams moving into that kind of sphere. They're asking for 3D laser bubble views and that kind of stuff. So we'll see the pull now from the new set of operators.
I had a question for Martin. I'm wondering about managing as-builts and the whole process and workflow that you had there. Specifically, I'm wondering about how as-builts can affect upstream documents. So just to give an example, you might have an as-built change that affects a flare system, which would go back and change piping, which would go back and change design requirements, which might back up in the feed. Do you have to go start the whole process over again? Maybe that's not a good example. Maybe there's something that's not so safety critical, but is there a way that you can back up into the process, or do you have to go all the way around to the beginning? And I guess specifically I'm thinking of, you've specified documents that everybody's going to say this is what we're delivering. Is there a way to establish a linkage between documents and parts of the documents so that you can know exactly what you have to back into to reconcile everything, or do you have to manage it by workflow and just go through the cycle again?
Well, if you're coming from the point of view of that conventional thing where there's a change during the construction and there's that you work that management of change, first of all, we're not trying to replace that traditional management of change. I think what we'll probably look to do is put a layer on top of it that actually tells you what you need to change to enhance that work process. But yeah, in essence, at the moment, you're going to have to go back and rework it with process and then go through the pipe and design. But as we get that sort of connected world, you should be able to see that straight away in the workplace planning tool, once a pipe has been allocated, it's currently being reworked by engineering in the back office, that it's clearly defined in the sort of pull down menu that you can't go and work on that particular pipe.
And we have a current project in Fiatech that's related to that. It's not connected with workplace planning right at the time, but it's testing field devices and software systems for redlining of documents, so that as you're collecting your as-built information and record drawing information, how do you best do that in the field on site so it doesn't get passed along, have to be recorded later, be done once digitally and managed in a system. So that project's been running for 8 or 9 months now, and it's testing comparable attributes in different software systems and field tablet devices to do that with.
Thank you.
Can I put a plug in? Actually, there's some software that does that today. So there are some stuff out there that you can take a look at tag elements and understand the impact of those changes, what's missing, what's not, if you have discrepancies out there. So if you want some interest, I'll talk to you later about that.
Actually, I have one. I think we have time for a couple more questions. I have one question for the panel at large here. I'm just kind of curious about something. We've talked about the virtual environment in terms of training and operational maintenance and things like that in advance of of the project itself. What about, do you see any value maybe, and I don't even know if the technology is there yet, but do you see any value possibly in investigating actual incidents, going back and recreating, because you have the model of the facility, you have the virtual environment and so forth, and actually after an incident has happened, so that you can go back and determine certain things, maybe even in the design itself, and even look at it operationally. Anybody who wants to?
Yeah, we actually have a client in the downstream sector that uses the system as such, as if it were a time machine. We're recording all the sensor data from the SCADA system. They look at historians. Mm-hmm. All that information is recorded and can be played back, forward and backwards to a millisecond sampling rate if they have that information to understand the causes and consequences of alarms. If that is compressed over too short a time span, chances are you will not understand the consequential, the potential domino effect that a particular alarm triggered in the system. And you can use this not just for enhancing safety, but also boosting efficiency in terms of automatic tuning of certain adjustments in the system or subsystems. And that is something that is possible and is done today.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
There's an organization called Mary Kay O'Connor Safety Symposium out of Texas A&M University through the Chemical Engineering Department. There's also taken laser scanning to play an after a fault type effect. So you can take it scanned, bubble view, and put it against models that you have, and you can see some of these effects as well too. And companies that have played into that scenario basis Mark has been describing. So it's not just a vendor per se. There's actually studies on that type of stuff being done by these councils. So.
Mm-hmm. so kind of dual purpose. I mean, not only investigating the incident, but actually,
As Mark
was
said,
saying,
yes, you can go through the sequencing and understand.
Optimizing
Absolutely.
the process
You bet.
itself. Interesting. Okay, let me check, quick time check. I think we're right down at the end of the session here. So unless I could probably entertain one last quick question if anyone's got something burning question. Otherwise, I think we can adjourn this session.
What time for the buses?
Huh?
What time for the buses?
And have time for the buses. Oh, what time is it for the buses?
Yes.
Ooh, I think
6:40.
6:40. Okay, and I think it was you go all the way down to the end. Okay, and then out to the left of the hotel. I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to especially thank the presenters, Nicholas and Martin. And I'd like to thank the members of the panel. This has been very interesting, very informative, and I'd like to thank the audience for your attention and hanging in there until this time of the day. So, thank you very much.